Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, made in my series Freemasonry and Satanism. I just did a video, series 174, part 1, on a 1805 encyclopedia. So I thought I would continue reading. Published in 1805. Encyclopedia, Dictionary, Arts and Science, Miscellaneous Literature. Philadelphia. See the date on the bottom. Is that 1803? Thought I read 1805 somewhere. So I downloaded the PDF encyclopedia. It took me a while to find it. But lordy, what this says, what I've already read in part 1, was hard to believe. Part 2, it's going to continue to be hard to believe what these people said. So I'll jump right to it. And you can see how I do this. I know where I left off, and I pre-read everything. And again, I'll say all the S's, or a lot of the S's, in this text are F's. So when I'm reading it, I got to switch it in my mind. So if I make some bloopers here, that's why. I can only do the best I can do. But I think it's worth reading word for word, obviously not copyrighted, 1803. All right. So I left off. All this is very spacious. It is well contrived to solicit the imagination of the young and the heart of the generous and benevolent, while under all this pretended regard to virtue and to the happiness of mankind is concealed the most formidable conspiracy against the peace of the world. That's where I left off. That's quite a sentence. After this address is delivered, the major Illuminati, the new recruit initiate, who is growing up in degrees, is presented with the codes of the recruiter, and for he must now inspect the pupils of the recruiter and must exercise the office of recruiter while presiding over the Minerva Academies. The next degree, which is that of Scott Knight, is both intermediary and stationary. It is stationary for those who are not sufficiently imbued with the principles of the order, and intermediate for those who have imbued the true spirit of illumination. The Scott Knights were appointed the directors of all of the preparatory degrees and to watch over the interest of the order within their district. They were to study plans for increasing the revenues of the order and to endeavor to promote to public offices the confidence of power and wealth as many of the adepts as possible, and to strive to acquire an absolute sway in the Masonic lodges. They were to procure the management of the Masonic funds, and while they were to persuade the brethren that those were expended according to their own orders, they were to employ them for promoting the views of the order. So they were taking over their Freemasonic lodges and spending their money. promoting the Illuminati. Thus, one office of the Scot Knights was to embezzle the money that was entrusted to them in order to diffuse truth and to make virtue triumph. After passing with applause through this long and tedious probation, the adept is introduced to the class of the mysteries: Kabbalah, sorcery, witchcraft, ancient religious mysteries. He is not yet, however, made acquainted with the whole secrets of the society. He must still submit to new trials. His curiosity must be further stretched, and his principles of depravity be rendered more violent and inverterate before the veil be entirely withdrawn. Remember, all these S's are F's. I have to think really quick to make the switch. So did you hear what I just said? His principles of depravity be rendered more violent and inverterate before the veil be withdrawn, which will discover to him Wusthof and his infernal crew. So there I was trying to switch the F to an S and I didn't have to. Wasn't supposed to. And religion of mankind. The degrees of EPOP, or priest. So EPOPT is one of the degrees, and it's also called the priest, to which the adept was next raised. The adept was next raised, open to view, however, so great a part of the mysteries that the reader will be fully prepared to expect the secrets which remain to be unfolded in the other degrees. Before being admitted to the degree of EPOP, the adept was required to give a written answer to 10 preliminary questions. The recruiter against the leadership of the order of the world, which had formerly been slightly mentioned, increased now to an indirect proposal to attempt a complete revolution. The candidate is asked whether he thinks the world has arrived at a happy state which was intended by nature, whether civil associations and religion attain the ends for which they were designed, whether the sciences are conducive to real happiness, and whether they are not merely the offspring of unnatural state in which men live and the crude inventions of crazy brains. It is then proposed as a question whether there did not in ancient times exist an order of things more simple and happy. What are the best means for returning mankind to the state of felicity? Should it be by public measures, by violent revolution, or by means that would ensure success, or by any means that would ensure success? So they're teaching these candidates, these new initiates, that the whole world is just a mess, and they need to return to ancient times without the laws and rules for morality. It should go back to more like cavemen, wild barbarians, maybe. Seems that's what they want. Would it not be proper, with this view, to preach to mankind a religion more perfect and a philosophy more elevated? And in the meantime, is it not advisable to determine the truth in secret societies? Should the answers given to these questions accord with the sentiments of the order, on the day fixed for the initiation, the candidate is blindfolded and along with his recruiter is put into a carriage, the windows of which are darkened. After many windings and turnings, which it would be impossible for the adept to trace back, he is conducted to the porch of the temples of the mysteries. His guide strips him of his Masonic insignia, which he wore as a knight, removes the bandage from his eyes, and presents him with a drawn sword. And then, having strictly enjoined him not to advance a step until he is called, leaves him to his meditations. At length he hears a voice exclaiming, "Come, enter, unhappy fugitive. The fathers await you. Enter and shut the door after you." He advances into the temple, where he sees a throne with a rich canopy rising above it. Before it, lying upon a table, a crown, a scepter, a sword, some pieces of gold, and precious jewelry, interlaid with chains. At the foot of the table, on a scarlet cushion, lie a white robe, a girdle, and the simple ornaments of the sacerdotal order. The candidate is required to make his choice of the attributes of royalty or of the white robe. If he chose the white robe, which he knows is expected he should do, the hierophant or the recruiter then addresses him. "Health and happiness to your great and noble soul. Such as the choice we expected from you. But stop, it is not permitted you to invest yourself with that robe until you have heard to what we now destine you." The candidate is then ordered to sit down. The book of the mysteries is opened, and the whole brethren listen in silence to the voices of the hierophant, like the religious teacher. The exordium is long, so the speech is long, pompous, much artifice is concealed in it, lots of secrets in it, and much eloquence displayed. It expatiates on a sublime and generous view of the society, evidently with the desire of lulling asleep the suspicion of the candidate, of exciting him to admiration, and inspiring him with enthusiasm. The hierophant, the teacher, then proceeds to unveil the mysteries. He launches into a splendid description of the original state of mankind, where health was their ordinary state, when meat and drink and shelter were their only wants. At that period, says he, men enjoyed the most inestimable blessings. They enjoyed equality and liberty. And this word is there a lot, and it's someplace else I'm going to show you. So it does clearly state in these pages from this encyclopedia of 1803, which I was saying 1805. Not that it really matters. But anyways, it was pointing out that they had infiltrated the Freemasons. And here, at that period, says he, men enjoyed the most inestimable blessings of equality and liberty. What they're saying, and this is very important, they want to take man back to a time when men were free to live in the wild like animals. And I saw this equality and liberty This is where all this deception comes from. And I'm reminded of the New Age Freemason magazines. I've made videos on many of these, several. But if you look on the bottom, you'll see that triangle says liberty, equality, and fraternity. So it is organizing, recruiting initiates into these secret societies. That's the fraternity on that triangle. And the liberty and equality is not what people think. It's they want to free we the people, so they say we're enslaved, from owning property. Locking your door, sleeping in a bed safely at night, going to the grocery store to get food. They want everybody to go back to where they don't own property. They don't sleep indoors. They don't have security. Much more like an animalistic society where you can have equality and liberty to do whatever you want. That's my interpretation. And I'm sure other people can make up this what they want to, but it's pretty clear to me. And there's more of these New Age magazines by the Freemasons. The symbols are there. And the equality and fraternity is in these. This is series 26. I think I've got like part 5 videos on the Freemason Scottish Rite New Age magazine. And how much more evidence do we need that these things are tied together? Back to the Encyclopaedia printout here. They enjoined them with their utmost extent. And when the wandering life ceased, property started into existence. And when arts and science began to flourish, when a distinction of ranks and civil associations were established, liberty was ruined in its foundation, and equality disappeared. So with the advances of civilization, with radios and air conditioning and heating and washing machine, refrigerators and all that, liberty was ruined in its foundation and equality disappeared. The world then ceased to be a great family, to be a single empire. The great bond of nature was rent asunder. Wants now increased, and the weak imprudently submitted to the wise or the strong that they might be protected. As the submission of one person to another arises from wants, it ceases when the wants no longer exist. Thus the power of a father is at end when a child has acquired his strength. Every man, having attained to years of discretion, may govern himself. When a whole nation, therefore, is arrived at that period when there can exist no further plea for keeping in its wardship, such a state as that of civil society is then represented as incompatible with the practice of virtue. When the division of the globe and of its states, benevolence, says the Hierophant, the teacher, was restrained in certain limits beyond which it could no longer be extended, patriotism was deemed a virtue. And he was styled a patriot who partial towards his country, men and unjust to others, was blind to the merits of strangers, and believed the very vices of his own country to be perfections. We really beheld, continues he, patriotism generating localism and confined spirit of families, and even egoism, diminished diminuth reject that love of country, and mankind will once more learn to know and love each other as men. Partially being cast aside, a union of hearts will once more appear, which will expand itself over the globe. This unphilosophical declaration, emphatically pronounced at length, makes the proselyte, the initiate, exclaim in unison with this master. Remember all these F's or S's or whatever, S's or F's, and so it does kind of hang up my reading. After such, then, the consequences of the institution of states and of civil society. O folly, O people, that you did not foresee the fate that awaited you, that you should yourselves have succumbed to the despots in degrading human nature, to servitude, and even to the condition of the brute. So remember back here, the Illuminati and the Freemasons were instrumental in fomenting hatred and inciting anger, so they caused revolutions, and all the wealthy people and leaders were dragged out of their buildings and stabbed with swords or hung, murdered. So the people behind the Illuminati and the Freemasons, who were the apparently a propensity, according to the Encyclopaedia Judaica, a lot of the Jewish people were behind fermenting these kinds of problems, and there was a lot of profit in it, I'm sure. Not all Jewish people, of course. All right. Having wrought up the initiate, the student, to this pitch of frenzy, and enumerated all the evils which, according to Ustav, arise from political association, the Hierophant, the initiate, comes to reveal the means by which the grievances of the human race may be redressed. Providence, he says, has transmitted the means to us of secretly meditating and at length operating the salvation of humankind. This means are the secret schools of philosophy. These schools have been in all ages the archives of nature and the rights of man. These schools shall one day retrieve the fall of human nature, and the princes and the nations shall disappear. Remember, they're trying to bring us globalism right now, New Age, New World Order. So nations shall disappear from the face of the earth. And go read the Protocols of Zion. I made a video on that, series number 8, or my other one, the Jewish Utopia 67 series, Freemasonry and Satanism. See who's behind this and see this mind control propaganda. They go through great lengths to convince the initiates, the recruits, this is how they shall think, as you shall hear more in this video. So the nations shall disappear from the face of the earth. And without any violence, human nature shall from one form one great family, and the earth shall become the habitation of the man of reason. And also, according to the USA Georgia Guidestones, they want to depopulate the planet down to about 500 million. So I suppose they want to kill 6 billion. Whoever wants to bring about this kind of reality wants men and women and children to live like animals. And I suspect the people at the top here, controlling the world, will live in their opulent ways like the Hunger Games movie. Reason shall be the only book of laws and the sole code of man. Code. This is one of our great mysteries. Attend to the demonstration of it and learn how it has been transmitted down to us. This pretended demonstration makes part of the same superficial harangue and conflicts in pyrogenics, panegyrics on the dignity of human nature in a beliefs, morality, and a scandalous perversion of the Christian scriptures, and a blasphemous account of the ministry of the Savior of the world. So according to my research, it's been said many times, even on the back of these Freemason New Age magazines, they want to eliminate Christianity. No money for any kind of religious schools. They only want people to go to government schools where they can be brainwashed. So, blasphemous account of the ministry of the Savior of the world. What strange beliefs, continues the Hierophant, can have induced men to imagine that human nature was always to be governed as it has hitherto been. So they do not want our world to be a governed world, nor do they want churches like Christian churches to preaching morality. And a lot of us, if you were honest with yourself, you can see in the TV, media, magazines, billboards, and every place else, even in the schools, teachers were showing young children homosexual videos and other promiscuous material. There is something going on behind the scenes. And this document here from this encyclopedia in 1803 says that's what they were going to do. And in many of the other books I've gone over. Where is the being who has condemned men to best, the worst and the most enlightened men to perpetual slavery? Why should human nature be bereft of its most perfect attribute, that of governing itself? So they want it to be a dog-eat-dog world. And President George Bush Sr. said, out of chaos and anarchy will come the New World Order. And it should be obvious to anybody, these secret societies are bringing us plenty of chaos and anarchy, and a lot of fear-mongering, pole-shifting, economic destruction, terrorism, nuclear war, plagues, and everything else they can possibly imagine. Why are those persons to be always led who are capable of conducting themselves? It is then impossible for mankind, or at least the greater part of them, to come to majority. Are we then fallen so low as not even to feel our chains, as to actually hug them, our chains, and cherish the flattering hope of being able to break them and recover our liberty? No, let us own that it is not impossible to attain universal independence. The language gets much stronger in this document, and I wanted to read every word of it as best I could. The principal means which Wusthof offers to his adepts for the conquest of this land of promise is to diminish the wants of the people, and according to the code denounces eternal war with every species of commerce. Hence the Hierophant, the teacher, proceeds to inform the candidate that he who wishes to subject nations to his yoke need but to create wants which he alone can satisfy. So it's saying here they need to create wants that they can satisfy. And obviously with the pollution and dumping chemicals in the sky and toxins and poisons, they are really destroying a lot of life on Earth, creating a need. And they want to move the people, according to my research, out of the rural areas into the cities and bring us some kind of reality like the movies we see. So to me, it seems like it's going to be a very bizarre, insane world. Not one you really would want to live in, I think. Confers, says he, upon the mercantile tribe from some rank or some authority in the government. And you will have created perhaps the most formidable, the most despotic of all powers. So I guess he's saying you confer upon mercantile tribe, some rank or some authority in the government, and you will be creating a most formidable and despotic person in power. He, on the contrary, who wishes to render mankind free, teaches them how to refrain from the acquisition of things which they cannot afford. He enlightens them. He incites into them bold and inflexible manners. If you cannot diffuse at the same instant this degree of light among all men, at least begin by enlightening yourself and by rendering yourself better. The mode of diffusing universal light is not to proclaim it at once to the whole world, but to begin with yourself and then turn to your next neighbor. You too can enlighten a third and a fourth. Let these in the flame manner extend and multiply the number of the children of light. The children of light. Lucifer is known as the light bearer, and in a lot of these New Age and even channeled material, they always talk about the light. Until numbers and force shall throw power into your hands. So they want to grow these organizations, permeate even into these civil governments and other organizations. You will soon acquire sufficient force to bind the hands of your opponents and subjugate them to the stifle wickedness in the embryo. You will soon be able to stifle every principle of law, of government, of civil, of political society, whose very institution in the eyes of the Illuminati is the germ of all vices and misfortunes of human nature. Can't believe I found this encyclopedia. Thank you to one of my commenters who directed me to it. The Hierophant, the teacher, continues to incite on the necessity of enlightening the people to operate the grand revolution, the new age, the new world order, globalism. Seems to be apprehensive that the candidate may yet clearly conceive the real plan of this revolution, which is in future to be the sole object of all of his instructions. Let your instructions and lights be universally diffused, for so shall you render mutual security universal. And security and instruction will enable us to live without prince or government. So they want the world to be without kings or princes or governments or presidents or Caesars or pharaohs or popes. Of course, a lot of those people in those positions now are of the Illuminati. How ironic is that? Or one secret society or another, like George Bush Jr. of the Skull and Bones. Everybody knows the leading politicians come from these Masonic or other mystery school secret societies. They wouldn't be in office if they didn't cater to the Jewish political PACs, political action committees, the money. They do have control of our world. This is 1803, so I'm kind of sure they didn't really foresee where we would be today. They probably thought they would have already accomplished their goal. The instruction which is to accomplish this great end is instruction in morality and morality alone. For true morality is nothing else than the art of teaching men to shake off their wardship, to attain the age of manhood, and thus to neither need princes or government. The morality which is to perform this miracle is not a morality of vain subtleties. So when they say morality, it's not a morality that most people think. It is not that morality which, degrading men, renders him careless of the goods of this world, forbids him the enjoyment of the innocent pleasures of life. So what are these innocent pleasures of life that this government morality subjects us to? This is me speaking. Would it be that they're trying to pass laws to lower the age of consent with sex with children? You can look that up. And all these other things, the strongest and most deceitful can enslave the rest. Is that what they want their liberty and equality for, so that evil can be free to do what it wants to do? Above all, it must not be the morality which, adding to the miseries and the miserable, throws them into a state of preliminary and despair by the threats of hell and the fear of the devils. So they don't like it that there's a threat of going to hell if you do evil things. That's not being free. You should be free to do whatever you want. Like Aleister Crowley taught, the Book of the Law, Series 23. If you haven't watched that video, go watch it. Look up other Aleister Crowley and other witchcraft material. Look at life on the TV right now. The movies. The programming. Lucifer, Modern Family. They are trying to change our world. There's no mistake about that. Some people think it's for the better. Some people don't think it's for the better. We have a 50-50 divide in our world right now. The propaganda from these people is and has been working. Takes a long time, but they're getting there. It must be of a divine doctrine, such as Jesus taught to his disciples, and of which he gave real interpretation in his secret conferences. So they're saying Jesus was teaching some similar thinking. I think not. The impious Hierophant teacher then proceeds with matching blasphemy to represent the Redeemer of mankind, Jesus, as teaching like a Grecian prophet an esoteric doctrine. That would be the occult, the Kabbalah, Jewish mysteries, all the things I've been talking about. He describes him as the Grand Master of the Illuminati and affirms that the object of his secret, which is lost to the world in general, has been preserved in their mysteries. It was, and restates mankind. It was to restate mankind in their original equality and liberty. As I point out, is in these books everywhere, and everywhere you look in the Freemason literature on the bottom there, with the Egyptian symbolisms, the mystery school religions are right there. In the center of this video, under that guy's head, is the Ankh, the T with the circle above it. The circle is a snake. In a lot of the pictures you'll see it. The T means divine, so it's the divine serpent. So right there where it says equality and liberty on the New Age Freemasonic books, it's also here in the Illuminati teachings. This explains in what sense Christ was the Savior and Redeemer of the world. The doctrine of original sin and the fall of man and his regeneration can now be understood. The state of pure nature, of fallen and corrupt nature, and the state of grace will no longer be a problem. So when they bring about this world where anybody can do what they want to do and live more like animals, the state of grace will no longer be a problem. The understanding of original sin will no longer be an issue. Mankind, in quitting their state of original liberty, fell from the state of nature and lost their dignity. So unless we go back to this animalistic reality where the strongest can enslave and rape and torture the weak, where these people can be free, I'm interpreting this the way I see it. Doesn't mean that you have to interpret it the same way. But when we came into a civilized society that we have today, we lost the dignity. Their civil society under their governments, they no longer live in that state of pure nature, but that in the fallen and corrupt nature. So they're saying decent, social, moral society is a fallen and corrupt nature. If the moderating of their passions and the diminution of their wants reinstate them in their primitive dignity, they will really continue their redemption in their state of grace. It is to this point that morality, and most perfect of all morality, that of Jesus, leads mankind. So they like to slip in the teachings of Jesus, but they're actually deceiving and saying another thing. It even says the words here by this writer, blasphemy. When at length this doctrine shall prevail throughout the world, the reign of the good and of the elect shall be established. So I know the Jewish people, according to series number 67, the Jewish Utopia, they think that they are the good and they should be the aristocrats of the world and rule the world. Hence we have all this New Age, New World Order, globalism propaganda. And a lot of Jewish people have been trying to warn the rest of us about these Zionist, communist, secret society, mysticism, occult groups into what I call witchcraft. This language, as Mr. Burrell observed, so this writer of this article I've been reading apparently is the leader of a major university in Germany, by the way, Mr. Burrell, is surely not enigmatic, and the proselyte, the one who's being converted from one religion to another, who has heard it without shuddering, may flatter himself with being worthy of this anti-Christian priesthood. That's what it says here on page 210. This whole thing we're talking about is an anti-Christian priesthood. He is led back to the porch. Remember, this is one initiate being raised to another degree of epoch, where he is invested with the white tunic and a broad scarlet belt of silk. The sleeves of the tunic, which are wide, are tied in the middle, and at the extremities with ribbons likewise of scarlet, and the candidate is recalled into the temple of mysteries. He is met by one of the brethren, who does not permit him to advance till he has declared whether he is perfectly understands the discourse which he has read to him, whether he has any doubts concerning the doctrines taught in it, whether his heart is penetrated with the sanctity of the principles of the order, whether he is sensible of the call, feels the strength of mind, the fervent will, sometimes I don't know if I should change the F to an S or not, the fervent will, and all the differentiated requisites to labor as the grand undertaking, whether he is ready to make a sacrifice of his will, to suffer himself to be led by the most excellent superiors of the order. The rites of the preceding degree were impetus derision of the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. Those of the presenter are autocriminus of sacerdotal ordination, at which, as everyone knows, the Lord's Supper is likewise celebrated. So I guess they're having some kind of ceremony like the Lord's Supper. A curtain is drawn, and an altar appears with a crucifix upon it. Oh my. On the altar is a Bible, and the ritual of the order lies on a reading disc, with a center and a vial full of oil beside it. So a confer and a vial containers. The dean or president, who acts the part of the bishop, blesses the candidate, cuts hair from the crown of his head, anoints him, clothes him in the vestments of the priesthood, and pronounces prayer after the session of the order. He presents him with a cap, saying, "Cover thyself with this cap. It is more precious than the royal diadem." The mock communion is then distributed, and it consists of milk and honey. So they have these containers with milk and honey, which the dean gives to the proselyte, the initiate, the recruit, saying, "This is that which nature gives to man. Reflect how happy he would still have been if the desire and superficials had not, by depriving him of the state of such simple food, multiplied his wants and poisoned the balm of life." Oh my. I realize this may be tedious and just ongoing and ongoing and ongoing, but I think it needs to be said and recognized that in 1803, this was in an encyclopedia, and much more. I did find this is Encyclopedia Volume 2, E to P, so I did think to myself, well, why don't I go look on this 800 pages and see what they have on Freemasonry, Masonry, and they did have it, and I did print it out, so I've got the topic 6 pages here on Masonry, Freemasonry, from this encyclopedia. That'll have to do another video on this in this series 174. Like I said, I don't want to leave any stone unturned. I want to find out what the heck is going on here. What are they up to? What do they want? Seems like it's pretty clear. Well, it gets worse on this page. The ceremonies are terminated by delivering to the epoch, this new degree, that part of the code which relates to the new degree. Among the instructions which it contains, the following are more partially worthy of notice. The epoch, the new initiate at a certain higher degree, says the code, will take care that the writings of the member of the orders shall be cried upon, and the trumpet of fame shall be founded in their honor. He will also find means for hindering the reviewers from causing any suspicions on the writers of the sect. So this is this new degree of Epot. These are some of his new responsibilities and codes. He is likewise instructed to bribe the common people into the interest of the order and to corrupt their minds. Did you hear me? What it says here? Page 211. By getting possession of schools and other seminaries of learning. So just like we already know with the Rockefeller Foundation and the other secret societies, even the congressional hearings on communism in the 1920s, they had intentionally tried to take over the schools and have continued to do it. And as we see today, they have done what they said they were going to do, what it says here in these Illuminati instructions in 1803, what they're going to do. But if it is necessary for us to master of the ordinary schools, says the impious legislator, of how much more important will it be to gain over the ecclesiastical, the universities, seminaries, and their superiors, so also the religious schools also. With them we gain over the chief part of the country. We acquire the support of the greatest enemies to innovation, and the grand point of all is that through the clergy we become masters of the middle and lower classes of the people. So they want to take control of all the religious organizations as well as the civil education organizations, which we know they have done. They've taken over the medical associations, institutions in America, and I'm confident of the world, even forcing people to take vaccines that they know are dangerous. From the degree of Epot or priest are chosen the regents and prince illuminates. On making this choice, says the code, 3 things of the utmost consequence are to be observed. The greatest reserve is necessity to respect to this degree. Those who are admitted into it must be as much as possible free men and independent of princes. Thirdly, they must have clearly manifested their hatred of the general constitution or the actual state of mankind. Wow. They have to actually hate all of us. And they have shown how evidently they wish for a change in the government of the world. If these requirements be found in the epic, this new initiate, who aspires to the degree of regent, preliminary questions are put to him, of which the obvious meaning is to discover whether he deems it lawful and proper to teach subjects to throw off the authority of their sovereigns, or in other words, to destroy every king, minister, law, magistrate, and public authority on earth. When these questions are answered to the satisfaction of his examiner, he is informed. That is, in future, he is to be entrusted with papers belonging to the order of the far greater importance than any which he has yet in his possession. So he is giving more information about the plans to take over the world, and he's got paperwork to back it up. He is therefore commanded to make his will and to insert a clause with respect to any private papers which he may leave in case of sudden death. So he has to make a will as to where these papers go should he die, so that nobody gets their hands on them. And by the way, like in Morals and Dogma, Albert Pike's Bible for the Freemasons, it says on the cover there, to be returned upon death of the owner. They didn't want those books to get out there, like so many other books. But with the coming of the internet and the way the system works, when people die, they have something called estate sales, and the stuff is auctioned off in bulk. A lot of these materials have fallen into the public domain. Hence, we get to know about it, which causes these aggressors of mankind who want to change our world. It's pushing them in a position where they have to do some things and move faster. And that's one of the fears, is they'll bring us to a nuclear war or something because they are getting close to being discovered or caught. It's in the news. They talk about it. He is to get a formal or judicial receipt for that part of his will from his family or from the public magistrate, and that he is to take their promises in writing that they are to fulfill his intentions. So he doesn't want his documents to fall into the public domain. The precautions being taken, and the day fixed for his inauguration, he is admitted into the antechamber hung with black, where he sees a skeleton elevated 2 steps. So he's getting initiated into this degree, and hanging from the ceiling, I guess, is a skeleton about 2 feet off the ground, with a crown and sword lying at its feet. So the skeleton has a crown and a sword lying at its feet. Having given up the written depositions and respecting his papers, his hands are loaded with chains, as if he were a slave, and he is left to his meditations. A dialogue then takes place between his introducer, his teacher, and to the provincial, who is seated on a throne in the in the salon adjoining. So next door is a throne where this principal or provincial is sitting. It is in a voice loud enough to be heard by the candidate, and consists of various questions and answers, of which the following may serve as a specimen. Remember, this is from an 1803 Encyclopaedia. So this provision says, who has reduced him to this state of slavery? So they're asking this new candidate. They're doing this ritual. Who has reduced him to this state of slavery? The candidate says, society, governments, the sciences, and false religion. And the provincial says, and he wishes to cast off this yoke, to become a seditious man and a rebel. And the candidate says, no, he wishes to unite with us. I guess it isn't the candidate, it's the candidate's teacher speaking for the candidate. To join in our fight against the constitution of governments, the corruption of morals, and the profanation of religion, he wishes through our means to become powerful, that he may attain the grand ultimatum. So now the provincial says, is he superior to prejudices? Does he prefer the general interest of the universe to that of the more limited associations? And the answer, such have been his promises. The provincial is asking again, sitting on the throne, ask him whether the skeleton which is before him be that of a king, a nobleman, or a beggar? And the answer comes back, he cannot tell. All that he sees is that this skeleton was a man like us, and the character of man is all that he attends to. Okay, now moving on here. After a great deal of insidious mummery, more of these kinds of questions and answers. Like this, the epoch is admitted to the degree of prince. Wow, he's moving up to prince now. But before his investiture with the insignia of that order, he is exhorted to be free, i.e., to be a man, and a man who knows how to govern himself, a man who knows his duty and his imperceptional rights, a man who serves the universe alone, whose actions are solely directed to the general beliefs of the world, general benefit of the world and of human nature. Everything else, says the provincial, is injustice. Wow. A long a long speech is then made on the happiness which will be experienced by mankind when every father of the family shall be sovereign in his tranquil cot. Well, at least they're going to give us a cot to sleep in, maybe not a house. When he that wishes to invade those sacred rights shall not find an asylum on the face of the earth. So anybody who wants to fight this when they bring about this, I can call it hell on earth kind of lifestyle, they don't want society as we know it, family values, etc. But so anybody trying to bring about the goodness of the world, in my opinion, will not find asylum on the face of the earth. When beliefs shall no longer suffer, and when the clod of unfit sciences shall be cast aside, the sign of this degree consisted in extending, remember the F's are S's, pardon me, out of the arms to a brother with the hands grasped, so they're doing some kind of secret handshake. The grip was to seize the brother by the two elbows, as it were to prevent him from falling, and the word was redemption. The epoch was invested with his principle by receiving a buckle and some boots and a cloak and a part of the ceremony and a hat. And on receiving the boots, he was desired to fear no road which might lead to the propagation or discovery of happiness. Thus decorated, the Prince Illuminati receives the fraternal embrace and heard the instructions of his new degree. So on this other page that I just finished, there's some writing on the bottom. I'll read it. This will naturally surprise our readers, but it could not surprise him to whom it was addressed. For when candidate for the priesthood had been asked, do the sciences which men cultivate furnish them with real lights? Are they conducive to real happiness? Are they not, on the contrary, the offspring of numerous wants and of the unnatural state of which men live? So obviously they don't like society as we have it today. where you might own a house and you have a job and you have a savings account, you pay taxes. You are not free, according to this. It's an unnatural state in which men live. Are they not the crude inventions of crazy brains? There were, however, to be academies for the cultivation of such sciences as fruited the designs of the order. Each academy was to conduct of 9 epochs, so each academy had to recruit 9 epochs to that level, of whom 7 were to preside respectively over the many departments of science, while the others 2 were to officiate as secretaries. One of the departments included the occult sciences. So that's the science they want to replace with our science we have today. They want magic, witchcraft to be the science. I'm just interpreting. Which belong to the art of raising the seals of the letters of all who belong not to the order, and to the securing their own letters against familiar practices. Wow. Do you think there's any chance we can understand what they want, what this is really about, when you take it to a different level of thinking, of philosophy? They obviously are opposed to the civil governments that exist in the world today, the religious organizations, and ironically, knowing what we know about the reality of today, it is these very people who have been in charge of these institutions easily for the last 100+ years. So they're bringing us all this chaos and anarchy, as President George Bush Sr. said would be required to bring about this New World Order, which Albert Pike said back in 1888 when he wrote a letter to his friend Mazzini in Italy that 3 world wars would be required to bring about this New World Order. And Albert Pike, Helena Blavatsky, Aleister Crowley, and so many of these people into mysticism, the Kabbalah, the occult, witchcraft, were communicating with some kind of beings called masters, interdimensional beings. You have to put all this into perspective, and it boggles the mind. I do not disagree with that at all. It boggles the mind. But apparently, it is what it is. So what I think I'm going to do right now is take a break from reading this and look at a couple pictures. Just went to my shoebox. I've got 4 of them, like these right here. There's 2. Got 2 more over there, where I have the pictures I've been using in these videos for the past 4 years under different categories. And I went and looked, and I did have one under Illuminati. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to look at them with what I know now. The Illuminati and the House of Rothschilds. The Rothschilds were behind the financing and a lot of the organizations of World War I, World War II, and bringing about the state of Israel. They even have a Rothschild Boulevard over there. It's all verifiable. And apparently they're at the head of the organization of the Illuminati. And apparently it was a Rothschild that was Wusthoff's, the person who was behind this Illuminati school organization, the cult, was Wusthoff's financier and superior. So if you go on Illuminati and Yahoo image site, you'll find these pictures and links to the websites where they came from, the explanation. They have an Illuminati card game. A lot of people are aware of this. Published about 20-something years ago or more. That has pictures indicating a lot of things that have happened, like the one on the top corner here, the Pentagon exploding, and the Twin Towers being bombed way before the events happened. Don't you think that's a bit suspicious? And there's a few pictures here of things like the Hoover Dam being blown up, which have not happened yet. Terrorism and all kinds of things. What are we dealing with? Apparently there is a pyramidal structure And apparently they're getting the military and the police organizations prepared to fight off or subdue society, we people at the lower level. In this picture you can see all the dead bodies. The royal family is part of this. You can see the symbolisms on their clothes, the Knights of Malta star and things like that. This is no small thing. Apparently, this was behind World War II, the Russian Revolution. All this was caused by these secret societies. You can find these pictures on the Yahoo image site. A lot of details, tells the story. There's plenty of evidence to what I'm talking about. The symbol is the all-seeing eye, the Order of the Templarius. A lot of corporations have a lot of these occult symbols if you start to recognize it. The eye, the sun, the pyramids, and during the recent tax code passed by President Donald Trump's group, the corporations came out the beneficiaries as well as the elite rich people. Why do I not find that surprising? Apparently Hitler was a Rothschild. There seems to be plenty of evidence, as I've gone over in numerous of these book reviews, like the Black Pope, Cause of World Unrest, so many more. Germany Must Perish, series number 124. But apparently this religion of redemption of the Jewish people is the religion of the Illuminati and Freemasons. And you can go on Yahoo image site and find these pictures and click the link. Judaism worship, Freemasonry, and the same Egyptian gods. And I'm convinced that's the truth. Albert Pike, the Second World War, must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. So even Albert Pike explained who and why these wars would be fought. And the last one's going to be, of course, even as prophecy in the Bible, an Armageddon affair in the Middle East. So eventually, whether it's the United States going over there to defend Israel and Russia coming down, or China to defend Syria or Iran, it seems like it's fermenting into an event that is unavoidable. And they're doing it intentionally. And I talk a lot about Henry Macau. Again, this is on the Illuminati Yahoo image search that I copied these pictures maybe a couple years ago. Let's see what the date is on the back here. 10/23/13, 2013. So Henry Macau wrote the book, The Illuminati, the Cult That Hijacked the World. The Man Who Would Be Messiah, I don't know who did that book. Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. Deceit to Seduction. You can find all this material. Go on Yahoo image site, plug in Zionism, find these pictures, click the link if you need any convincing. And apparently the serpent is involved, the six-pointed star. Like I said, I just grabbed this stack. I didn't preview them. So what is this particular religion of the serpent? And I said the serpent on top of the T means divine serpent. And you can see this round thing around this emblem is a serpent. This one here on the rosy cross, the round thing around it is the serpent, the pyramid, the rose. Even on the USA Georgia Guidestones, they have a plaque that says they want to reduce the world population to 500 million. So apparently who's ever behind the scene controlling this planet wants to kind of firm up their control and get rid of the population. These are some more pictures I found on that Illuminati Yahoo image website search. Library Association, Portland. So no matter where you go, and there's a serpent in this picture for a Portland library, and Aladdin's lamp or something. This one has some kind of aliens on it with the all-seeing eye. Looks like a gray alien, some kind of beast. And an Egyptian person, again encircled by the serpent. Freemasonsinformation.com. Freemasonsinformation.com. There's the serpent eating the tail, the Freemasonic symbol. Oh, here where the serpent biting its own tail is commonly known as Ouroboros. In Norse mythology, the world serpent, Juggernaut, grows so large that it encircles the earth and bites its own tail. In this particular sculpture, the serpent's body rests upon a cradle of human skulls with a crescent moon above the head. The meaning of this should be obvious. Oh my. The Egyptian pharaoh with a serpent on his head and a bird head, a serpent and a bird head. And then a lot of the churches here in America have turned towards this Zionist, apocalyptic, occultic, probably Freemason, Illuminati member. Even badges for the astronauts and NASA and Air Force pilots, they have serpents. Here's one for the Freemasons. Rosicrucian, serpent eating its tail. I guess it's down there with the Mayans, some of their etchings in stone on the monuments. So it does seem, when we just read from the Encyclopaedia published in 1803, what their intentions are. I will continue reading some more from that. It's just interesting to know what kind of being they worship. And like I've said before, I intend to go over this stuff and from the different angles and different perspectives. What's the channeled material got to do with this? Helena Blavatsky's The Secret Doctrine, Jim Marrs, The Terror Conspiracy, the Encyclopedia of the Occult, channeled material, like I said, Who Financed Hitler, Helena Blavatsky's ISIS Unveiled, UFOs, Aliens, The International Jew, Project Montauk, Philadelphia Experiment, Mind Control, Chemtrailing, Electromagnetic Weaponry, and so much more. I gain a little bit more confidence in what I'm talking about as I go along. It's just so hard to believe. It boggles the mind, like I said. And here's a picture with all the symbols there for you. The swastika, the six-pointed star, the crown on top there, the serpent, the Ankh, the divine serpent, the six-pointed star, the serpent. Do you see a common denominator? The Bible, Adam and Eve, the serpent. China, the dragon is one of their popular symbols. The American Indians, a serpent. And I've shown this book a lot. The shamans of Peru, with the ayahuasca drug they take, the common theme is a serpent. Look at some of these pictures. See the serpents? So the shamans take this drug, go into a trance state, and see this other invisible reality. These symbols are everywhere. Remember, I got these pictures from the Yahoo image site looking up Illuminati. George Washington's monument in Washington, D.C., that's George Washington sitting there, has a serpent on the side of it. He's holding a serpent. What the heck is going on here? And of course the Pope has got the six-pointed star on his crown there, and the Knights of Malta symbols on his shoulders. You can see the Queen of England has that pin on her dress. The Star of Raphael. So do we understand who the divine God is for the state of Israel? And here's a rabbi giving us the devil sign. Does that guy look like he's saying, I love you? Zionist with wolves in the church. The six-pointed star. One of the gods or the rituals they have is feeding their god children. Even in the Bohemian Grove, where Alex Jones snuck in there and videoed the cremation of care ritual, where they have a giant statue called Moloch, and Moloch can be an owl or a bull. They feed it babies. Interesting enough, when I went over that video about the Hopi Indians, Series 161, they were sacrificing young virgins every 4 years. This has everything to do with Karl Marx and communism and the bloodiness of all those affairs. A lot of people are not aware of this. Look at the piles of bodies there. But they said 100 million people might have been killed during the Russian Revolution. And I think they have a more seething hatred towards America today. Why would the Pope be doing the devil signs? And he looks like the devil. Why do they want us to believe this when they are causing all the evil? 666, six-pointed star, six-sided hexagon. And like I said before, that little crooked backward 7 on the Monster drink, that popular drink people buy, says Monster on it. There's those 3 little 7s. That's Hebrew for 6. 666. Once we squeeze out all we can out of the United States, it can dry up and blow away. And who said that? The current leader of Israel today, former Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, after leaving U.S. double agent spy John and Pollard's jail cell. Please go look it up. Don't believe me. I found the picture on Yahoo image site. Non-Jews exist to serve Jews. Israel Shepherditic leader Rabbi Ovida Yosef in his weekly Saturday night sermon said that non-Jews exist to serve Jews. And I've been reading from the Illuminati section in a 1803 Encyclopaedia, and it was the Jews who were behind these secret societies. Not all Jews, but some of them are looking for some kind of redemption and want to return to some kind of powerful kingdom worldwide. That's their aspirations. Goyim were only born to serve us. Without that, they have no place in the world, only to serve the people of Israel. Please go look this up. Don't believe me. I find a picture and I report. "666th Rothschild. Blame the Rothschilds." Apparently, according to a press release, a Rothschild was just died, Jacob Rothschild, in a helicopter crash landing at his mansion. It makes you wonder if they're just not helping these people disappear. And again, back to the Illuminati card game, the Twin Towers, the Pentagon. This game was published way before these events. All right, I'm almost finished. The Boston bombing. So many clues. Why was the Boston bombing at 666 Boylston Street? Look at the two obelisks. Look at the bull. Look at all the symbols. Go find this picture on the Illuminati Yahoo image site. This is just part of my research. I guess I printed these pictures out like it says on the back here. 11/6/2013. And they control Hollywood. All of our Hollywood stars are doing the one-eye thing or the pyramid thing. Madonna there doing the satanic ritual. There's no shortage. Look at Madonna's vest on my finger with the pyramid on the back. Katy Perry, all these stars and Hollywood people. Celebrities that are involved with the Illuminati. So with that little break in my reading, I'll get back to reading. But what is a person supposed to believe? I think we should all wake up before it's too late, if it's not too late already. All right, moving on. One would think that the adept had now arrived at the very acme of personal and treasonable conspiracy. He had been initiated in mysteries, were borrowed Christianity and its divine author, or buries, and at the same time vows vengeance against all government and all law and all sciences. Yet Wusthof, in a letter to Cato, Zoc, his incomparable man, says that he has composed 4 degrees above that of regent and of prince illuminate, with respect even to the lowest of which his degree of priest will be found no more than child's play. The ritual of these degrees, says he, I never suffered to go out of my hands. So he's created 2 higher degrees, and he will not let them out of his hands. It is too serious an import. It is the key of the ancient and modern, the religious and political and history of the universe. This caution of the chief conspirator has deprived us of the power to give so particular an account of these degrees as we have done of the preceding degrees. But the Abbey Burrals alludes us that they were reduced to 2, that of the Magnus and that of the Man-King, and that these 2 constituted the greater mysteries. When the adept was admitted to the degree of Magnus, he was illuminized only in philosophy and religion. When to that, the man-king, new lights were given him respecting property and every species of political association. The Abbey quotes a passage from the critical history of all the degrees of the Illuminati, written by a man of honor who had passed through them all, which will give the reader a sufficient idea of the object of these last degrees. With respect to these two degrees, the Magnus and of Man-King, says the writer, there is no reception, that is to say, there are no ceremonies of initiation. Even the elect are not permitted to transcribe these degrees. They only hear them, and that is the reason why I do not publish them with this work. The first is that of Magnus, called the Philosopher. It contains the fundamental principles of Spinanza. Here everything is material. God and the world are but one and the same thing. All religions are inconstant, chimerarity, and the invention of ambitious men. So he said all religions are created by some cheating, lying men. That this is the doctrine of Spinanza, and that Spinanza was an atheist is most certain. But though nothing can be essentially worse than atheism. So they're taking the advice from an atheist, and apparently there's nothing worse than an atheist. We are strongly inclined to suspect that at the initiation of the Magnus, expressions must have been used more shocking, at least to the ear, than the philosophical jargon of the apostate Jew. It is long since the prophecy of Spinanza was in Germany, recommended from these priests. See Spinanza Encyclopaedia. So I guess you can go look up Spinanza and learn about him on the internet. It is but very lately that the professor in the University of Jena published a book in which he teaches that there is no God, and that we are absolutely give that title to the relations of nature, and something approaching so near to atheism had been communicated to the adept when he was admitted to the priesthood, that we are persuaded Wüsthof must have alluded to language at least different from that in which Spinanza taught his dark doctrines, and that language accompanied perhaps with impious and audacious gestures, when he said that, compared with his higher mysteries, his degree of priest was but child's play. So he created some higher degrees that make all that other stuff we talked about child's play. What gives some degrees of probability of this conjecture, if it be nothing more, is the following fact related by the Abbé Barel. During the French Revolution, says the able and well-informed writer, a comedian appeared, dressed in a sacerdotal robes of the Illuminati, and personally defying Almighty God. No, says the impetuous wretch, thou dost not exist. So they have this play where he gets on stage and goes, thou dost not exist. If thou hath power over the thunderbolts, grasp them, aim them at the man who dares set thee at defiance in the face of the altars. But no, I blaspheme thee, and I still live. No, thou dost not exist. It will be seen by and by that the chiefs of the revolution and even numbers of their tools were Illuminized, and it is improbable that the blasphemer, who was arrayed in the insignia of the epochs, made use of the language and gestures of the higher mysteries. That was a press release that came out yesterday. Thought I'd take a break from reading from that document. And it just continues to confirm my thinking that there is some kind of sinister religious cult at play in our reality. This is yournewswire.com. Mel Gibson says, Hollywood is den of parasites who feast on the blood of kids. Unbelievable, but we can see what's going on TV. Lucifer, Hunger Games, 2.5 Men, Charlie sleeping with a different girl every show, Jerry Seinfeld sleeping with a different girl almost every show. They're trying to bring us this new paradigm of reality. Hollywood studios are drenched in the blood of the innocent children, according to Mel Gibson, who claims the consumption of baby blood is so popular in Hollywood that it basically operates as a currency of its own. I'm aware during the recent presidential election, President Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, accusations of Pizzagate, John Podesta, child trafficking, and apparently there's a lot of alternate news about arrests being made. So these people who are controlling our world are definitely into this immoral religion. And believe it or not, these people who apparently worship some kind of demons or Lucifer, Satan, they actually, part of their religion, just like if you're a Christian or a good person, you're supposed to do good acts and be good, but these people who worship the opposite of good are supposed to do bad acts and do bad things. They can't just be semi-evil. They have to be real evil and do things and sacrifice people and sex with children, apparently. It's just too hard to believe. But it is what it is if you do any research. Hollywood elites are the enemy of mankind, continually acting contrary to our best interest and breaking every God-given taboo known to man, including the sanctity of children. Mel Gibson said in London, where he is promoting his role of Daddy's Home 2, his most prominent on-screen role in years. Mel continues to say here, it's an open secret in Hollywood. These people have their own religious and spiritual teachings. You see what I'm saying? And their own social and moral frameworks. Remember, they want to bring us, like it says in the bottom here, equality and liberty. It's part of this religion. But they don't want you to know the truth. They have their sacred text. Says it here. Says it here. I don't think Mel Gibson's stupid. Miley Cyrus's father, years ago, I've talked about this in numerous videos, Billy Ray Cyrus. He was worried about in GQ magazine, you can go look it up, but he was worried about the satanic influences on Miley. And look at some of the stuff she's done on the videos and the symbolisms. Bieber, his songs, his lyrics, the things he's done. All these people, Madonna, Beyonce, Lady Gaga, so many more. The symbolisms are out there. Mel Gibson is saying this to a reporter in England. They are sick, believe me. Then they couldn't be at more odds with what America stands for. They want to destroy America. I've been reading that in the Illuminati material there since 1803. They want to destroy the world. Mel Gibson appeared on the Graham Norton show on the BBC on Friday, and he schooled shocked guests about the real nature of Hollywood elites in the green room backstage after his appearance, explaining that he spent the last 10 years working on my own ideas outside of the Hollywood system after being blacklisted in Hollywood in 2006 for sharing opinions about the industry in the world that run counter to liberal orthodoxy, Gibson said. I don't know how to break it to you, but Hollywood is institutionalized pedophilia. They are using and abusing children. And then, of course, I'm thinking about all these Hollywood stars, sports people, newscasters, politicians being accused of molestation and rape and coming out on TV and saying they're sorry and they're going to get counseling and they apologize, and some of them, like Kevin Spacey, are getting fired. I think there's a psychological thing going on, trying to diffuse the whole topic or distract us from different things. They are obviously pumping it out there, and they're doing it for a reason. And here's Mel saying these things. They churn through a huge amount of kids every year. Their spiritual beliefs, if you can call them that, direct them to harvest the energy of children. They feast on this stuff and they thrive on it, the Hacksaw Ridge director said. And there's more here to read. Wow. Let me try to finish some more of this video on this encyclopedia material and see if this matches what we see going on in our world. Maybe some people with common sense will be able to put this together. Whether or not Mr. Burrell has proved, even from the writings of Wusthof himself, that the Magi were at least atheists of the school of Spinoza. So did Wusthof create these two highest degrees for the Illuminati? And were they an atheist degrees, or were they even worse, some kind of religion Mel Gibson is talking about? And the stuff I've been going over in many books, reviews. The second degree of the grand mysteries, called the Man-King, teaches, according to the author of the Critical History, that every inhabitant of the country or town, every father of a family, is sovereign as men formerly were in the times of patriarchal life, to which mankind is once more to be carried back. So they want to take us back to the ancient times. That is consequence, all authority and all magistracy must be destroyed. This may appear to be nothing more what the adept has already been taught in the lesser mysteries, and it is in fact nothing more than that which he must have seen these mysteries tending. So these adepts must have some idea where they're being taken. But the reader understands not the language of the Illuminati. If he supposes that by the patriarchal state they mean such a state as that of the patriots of the Old Testament, no, their patriotic state is the fancied savage state of the atheist philosophers, the atheist philosophers of Greece and Rome. You should try reading this if you think it's easy. When mankind had neither property nor fixed habitation. So they want to take us back to a time when mankind had neither property nor fixed habitation. This is evident from one of the discourses of the Hierophants, the teachers, in which he tells the adept, the student, that would have been happy for man had he known how to preserve himself in the primitive state in which nature had placed him. But soon the unhappy germ developed itself in his heart, and rest and happiness disappeared. As families multiplied, the necessary means of subsistence began to fail. The nomad, or the roaming life, ceased. Property began. Man chose fixed habitations. Agriculture brought them together. Liberty was ruined, and in its foundations, inequality disappeared. Again, I'm reminded of what's on the Freemason New Age magazine. On the bottom, liberty, equality, fraternity, and the symbolisms, the religion of the ancient mysteries. To restore that liberty and equality, to want to restore liberty and equality in the New Age magazine. Didn't have to be Sherlock Holmes to figure this out. To restore that liberty and equality, therefore, which is the ultimate object of the order and constitutes the man-king. All property must be abolished. Every house must be burnt, as well as the cottage of the peasant, as the palace of the prince. And mankind must once more inhabit the woods and caverns without clothes and without fire, and sally out occasionally to encounter their fellow brutes. So I guess you come out of your cave every now and then to encounter your fellow brutes. They want people to go back to being caveman. And so I guess if you want a woman, you'll go over to a nearby tribe or group or some caveman who has a woman. And when he's away chasing a saber-toothed tiger to get dinner, you can take your club and go club her and drag her back to your cave. And then later on, when you're not paying attention, some other ape man will be spying on your wife and go in there and club her again and take her back to his cave. Feel sorry for the women. They're going to have an awful headache. This is just too much to believe when I'm reading, so I have to have a little humor here. So go leave your cave and go out with your fellow brutes and search for food among the wild herbs of the desert. According to Muchos, the Phoenician, and the Greek philosophers of this hopeful school, this was the original state of man. And to this state, it was the object of Wusthof and his adepts to reduce man again. How much plainer English do we need from this 1803 encyclopedia? All right, let me try to finish up this video. Hence we hear them lavishing the most rapturous encomiums of the Goths and the Vandals, who overran the Roman Empire, annihilated the arts, and put a stop to agriculture, burnt the towns and villages of civilized Europe. It was thus, according to the Illuminati, that those barbarians regenerated mankind. But the regeneration was not complete, for the Goths and the Vandals could not preserve themselves from the contagion of civil life, and their fall from sovereign to science drew from Wusthof, Hierophants, his teachers, the most piteous lamentations. So even the Goths and the Vandals, when they destroyed all of Rome and the British Empire, trying to regenerate mankind, they were seduced back into civil life, to be civilized. The last secret communicated to the most favored adepts was the novelty of the order. Hereto, their zeal had been inflamed, and their respect demanded to the institution pretended to be of the highest antiquity. The honor of the instituting the mysteries had been successfully attributed to the children of the patriots, to the ancient philosophers, even to the Church Christ himself, and to the founders of the Masonic lodges. So I think I'll stop reading there. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope some of this information made sense. But there does seem to be something going on behind the scenes to destroy the world the way we know it. And it looks like a lot of this chaos and anarchy was intentional, like 9/11, false flag shooting, Las Vegas, Boston bombing, and so much more. All this perversion. There are people bent on destroying Christianity, other religions, destroying all the countries in the Middle East, and bringing down the world that we know, destroying everything, all the houses, as it just said, all the governmental buildings, all the power plants, all the sewer plants. What do you think? Thank you for watching my video. Rick Merico reporting.